What's going on? Welcome back to yet another episode of the Normal Baseball Podcast. Today we are going to be talking about everything that has happened since the World Series ended, and we are now officially in the offseason. We're going to talk about everything that has happened. Welcome back to Normal Baseball. I'm Alex Normal Dog. That's Lewis. And the offseason's finally here. I'm very excited. The offseason's one of my favorite times of the year. Obviously, yes, it's sad the season's over, but we've already seen a lot go down. And it's been a lot of fun stuff. So I will most certainly take this so far, and we're going to, kind of update you guys. And as well, play a little bit of catch up because during the postseason, stuff was happening, but we weren't really talking about it. We were just talking about postseason baseball. So now we're ready to catch up. You ready, Lewis?
Yeah,
You excited for the off season?
I am more than excited. I'm happy to be into our new graphic, which, if anyone's watching on YouTube, looks pretty cool, doesn't it? Looks pretty good.
It's nice. It's nice.
Alex and I stacked
Um,
up and going to enjoy it. Let's catch up on everything. Everyone get ready for a long conversation because this is going to be a lot of fun.
yeah, I'm ready. We have a lot to talk about. First, what I think we should talk about is the team that made the most moves in their front office and coaching staff, the New York Mets.
Yeah.
Obviously, the New York Mets had a little bit of a disappointing season, and when I say a little bit, I mean a lot of it. One of the most disappointing seasons in recent memory, or even in history, if you dare say. Um, but they did make some changes in the front office. A big change at that. Their president of baseball operations changed. They hired David Stearns
Well, they
to be
brought
their
in a president of baseball operations. They didn't have one
right.
beforehand. Hello.
Right. They brought in David Stearns to be their new president of baseball operations on a 5-year deal. This has been rumored for a long time. He left Milwaukee after the 2022 season, and he wasn't allowed to really talk to anyone until this year because he was still controlled by the Brewers. And the Brewers weren't letting anyone talk to him, and he was finally, off that deal, so he was able to talk to teams, and the Mets swooped in and finally made it official. This is a very fun signing for the Mets, very exciting. Stearns in Milwaukee, he was there for 7 seasons. He did the best he could with a limited budget because obviously the Brewers are one of the smaller markets in MLB, and now he's coming over to the Mets, who have, everyone says unlimited money. So they have one of the youngest guys in their front office, and honestly, one of the best in baseball.
Oh, yeah. The fact that he was able to make certain moves during his tenure with the Brewers to put them in the spot that they eventually got to. I believe they had an NLCS appearance. A
They were
couple.
one win away from the World Series in
One,
2018.
yeah, one went away from the World Series all those years ago, and constantly, even though sometimes they've been a wild card, sometimes they've won the division, people have had serious questions of whether or not that team would win in the postseason. And to be frank, most of that is because of how the team was built. Like, yes, you get lucky on trading for a guy like Christian Yelich, but at the end of the day, there was a lot of other pieces moving. It's not like you're a big free agent market. They built a lot of talent, and David Stearns was definitely a big part of that. Now, obviously, not the only piece. Shout out to all the minor league coaches and even the MLB level coaches out there that help build up these talent pools. But finding them is a David Stearns thing, and he's good at doing that.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, he had that limited budget in Milwaukee, and, now we've seen that he can develop the prospects and work with not an unlimited budget, and now he's going to have an unlimited budget and still be able to work with the prospects. So he brings, I think most people can work with an unlimited budget. That's, a pretty nice thing to have, but being able to work without it is the real skill and where the real skill comes in. And, he comes into a Mets organization that has one of the best farm systems in baseball. We saw them really boost it last year with the Scherzer and Verlander trade. They got Luis Angel Acuna, Drew Gilbert from the Astros, as well as Ryan Clifford in the Verlander deal. And not to mention, they already have a couple of really solid prospects in their system. Kevin Prada, Jet Williams, who was their 2022 first-round pick, just to name a couple. So, I don't know. I'm really excited to see what Stearns can do with this club. And, obviously they needed to make these changes. So, it's finally happening.
Yeah, yeah, definitely a big big change in the Mets organization, bringing in a guy with such talent. However, with bringing in some guys, other guys have to go. And I don't know if this is a good transition or not, but the Mets did lose their GM. Basically, at the same time of bringing in David Stearns, Billy Eppler resigned from the general manager position of the Mets. And at first, everyone was confused, like, why did he want to have all the power and decision-making power? And then it comes out a few hours after he resigned, the MLB has been investigating him and is currently investigating him for misusing the injured list. Or, yes, the injured list, right? That's what it's called?
The Phantom IL more.
Yeah,
more
which
likely.
It's strange to mention that, and for the MLB to come out and say, like, we're going to investigate you and your team for this, because throughout the whole season, a lot of teams use it. Like, they use the IL in ways that we shouldn't see. For example, just across the town, Yankees put Josh Donaldson on the 60-day IL, and then it was like, 2 weeks later, he was taking a full-blown practice on the field, looking completely healthy. A lot of teams use the Phantom IL to give other prospects a try, or for GMs, I guess, you can say that they use it to get the lineup that they want out of their manager if they refuse to, which I believe was a big reason as to why Billy Eppler used the Phantom IL for some players.
There was, of course, a lot of talk about, I believe it was something with Daniel Vogelback and how he was just not playing for like weeks, but he was still on the major league roster. And that's because, I don't know. And, they sent down guys. I don't know the exact details, but they are investigating him for it. I think that another thing with it is, if you send a young guy to the IL, the IL when they're still healthy, it saves you an option. So they don't get option to AAA, and you still have all 3 options left to use. Not to mention that, but they also get service time and they get full major league pay for while they're on the IL. So rather than sending a guy down, you do that. And I think that that's basically what they're looking at, is him just, instead of sending players down, putting them on the IL.
If that's what they have to do, I guess that's what they have to do. I don't know how much I agree with it. Play the guys that are healthy.
I don't agree with it.
And let your manager use the guys that he wants to use or that he believes can benefit this organization the most. But, it happens with every team. I think it's a bad look for the Mets that it's them getting investigated for it, but every team does it. I don't know why Billy Eppler is being sort of scapegoated about it when we know for a fact every team does it.
Yeah, I think it's just about how obvious you are with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I guess.
And they did say they got anonymous tips from players, so who knows? Maybe someone in the organization, one of the players said, they keep putting me on the IL, and I'd kind of rather be playing in the minor leagues, getting better, instead of just sitting on the IL while I'm healthy.
Do you think that it was a young player, like a Brett Beatty?
You would think it would have to be, no?
I don't know, because I think we've heard it multiple times from a lot of younger players, especially in today's day and age over the past few years. That jump from AAA to the major leagues has gotten so much larger, whereas a lot of players would rather just sit on the bench and, hey, I'll do my live ABs against a major league pitcher. I think that that's what some players would rather do. But I don't know who it could have been. I don't know what happened there. I just hope that for the sake of everyone, if there is somebody in Major League Baseball, especially if you're a younger prospect or rookie who just got called up and you're being Phantom IL'd in your rookie season, I hope that they put an end to that, because these guys deserve a long leash and the ability to go out and play as much as they want.
Yeah, again, I'm interested to see what comes out of this investigation, what conclusion they draw. And, eventually we'll find out more of what happened. But now, as of right now, we just know that he's being investigated for the use of the Phantom IL.
My guess, the MLB...
And we know the Mets need a new GM now, too.
Yeah.
So.
Well, funny enough. So, 2 things then. One, he'll probably get a suspension for like a year or so in terms of for working for Major League Baseball or for any of its organizations. No big deal. He resigned from the Mets. Everyone would kind of let the fire cool down on him anyway, whatever. As for the Mets and a new GM, Stearns actually earlier on the 7th which is today as of the time of recording this, to yesterday as the time of this posting, went out and said that they don't plan on hiring a GM for this offseason, which is a bold strategy considering that you're looking at one of the greatest players in the history of baseball sitting in free agency, and you don't want to hire a GM.
Well, I mean, you think about it, Stearns is going to be running the show. No, you might as well take away the thought of we're going to hire a GM just to be a puppet for David Stearns. Stearns wants to do it himself. I guess he doesn't really need a second hand man.
I guess, but also some of the GMs that you could probably hire probably have a more personal connection with certain free agents and their agencies and all that. Hurt. Yes, it can't hurt. And who cares if it becomes a puppet? I would rather have a puppet that knows what they're talking about and is more buddy-buddy than all business. Because at the end of the day, making a business deal is one thing, but also bringing in a guy to basically become part of your family in an MLB organization is a whole different story.
Yeah, no, I get that. We'll see, if they said they don't want to sign one this offseason, maybe we'll see one, during the season or next offseason. But if he said that, right now it looks like it's going to be the Cohen-Stearns show in New York this offseason. And, we've seen Steve Cohen effortlessly get free agents to sign with the Mets. So we'll see if he can continue to do that just by throwing money at people. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
And then in terms of, more Mets stuff, we saw a lot with their manager situation. Obviously, Buck Showalter fired or parted ways with the Mets at the end of the season. Yesterday, November 6th, so Monday, they named Carlos Mendoza as their new manager, despite, a lot of Craig Counsell rumors over the last couple of weeks. They signed Carlos Mendoza to a 3-year deal with a 4th-year team option if he makes it that far. Mendoza, he was the Yankees bench coach last season, and he was with the Yankees organization for the last 15 years. So they take a guy from the Yankees in that sense. I don't really know how to feel about this. And I talked to a lot of Mets fans too, and they just kind of said, obviously we were expecting Counsell, but this, we're not mad about it. We have no idea. We just don't know. This guy doesn't have any managing experience at the major league level, at least. Definitely not. But he's known to have good relationships with the players. So, just a really random signing, in my opinion.
I get why you say that. I took it a different way. As one, we now know that Counsell, as soon as he got his offer from the team that he signed with the Cubs, he didn't go back to anyone else. But for sure, a lot of Mets fans expected and wanted Counsell. I think if you're the Mets, this is the perfect signing for this upcoming season. If you don't, and this is a big if because we know Steve Cohen has the money to do it, if you don't bring in the Yamamotos of the world, the Shohei Ohtani, or even help a Blake Snell or a Matt Chapman, just a really big free agent, you basically run it back. And at the end of the season, when you underperform, or if you underperform, guess what? You have the perfect scapegoat. First-time manager. He didn't really know what he was doing. He had to feel out the whole organization that he has not been a part of for 15 years. It's a great scapegoat because, guess what? At the end of the day, you didn't get basically the only guy that was linked to your organization. So to pivot to a guy who worked under Aaron Boone, who we hear all the time, especially we live in New York. We hear it all the time. Players love Aaron Boone because he stands up for his guys, because he has such a good connection with all of his guys. And if that's going to rub off on Mendoza, then maybe that's a good start. Sure, it might not win you a World Series this year, but it's definitely a good start to building a more friendly environment for the players, because at points, what was it, a couple of years ago, Jeff McNeil and Francisco Lindor tried to kill each other in the hallway of the dugout. There have been times where you hear things about the Mets and you're like, they just need someone to sit there and be like, guys, cut it out, let's go play ball, let's go win the ball game. And it's a great scapegoat for this upcoming season if they underperform.
I see it a different way than you. I don't think Mets fans are that naive, or I don't know if naive is the right word for it, but I don't think Mets fans are buying that. I think that they think,
No, I'm
we
saying that's going
underperformed.
to be the retrospective.
I get it, but I don't think that that's I don't think they would try to make that a scapegoat at all. And I don't think Mets fans would fall for it if they do try to do that because, the Mets still do have an insanely good team. And you bring in David Stearns, and now there's this high expectation of, hey, our young guys are going to be really good. We're going to be able to bring in guys. So if they don't do that, and then their team underperforms again next year, and they don't even make the playoffs, I think Mets fans are going to be outraged, and I don't think it matters who the manager is because my thoughts on Mendoza a lot different than yours in the sense of I think he's just a puppet. I think that this is a signing of you have a good relation with the players, you make the clubhouse a good environment, you make everyone happy,
And we'll give you the lineup card every morning.
Right, and we'll make all the decisions for you. Our analytic department, I think he's a puppet for the analytic department. That's going to be, making the lineups,
Hey,
getting pitcher depth charts.
Yeah.
So okay. I think that's what's actually going to happen. I think that was what was behind the signing, and I think if you go back to the Craig Counsell thing, obviously I know the Cubs. We're going to talk about it in a little bit, but they offered him a lot of money, and I know it was hard to turn down. But I also think maybe at some point Counsell didn't really want to be a puppet for the Mets.
I also think that Counsell knows he's been in baseball long enough to know what the media can do, and he got a good brunt of it in Milwaukee, right? Not a big market, not a place where hundreds of thousands of reporters and analysts and people just like us go every year. He did it in Milwaukee. Now imagine trying to do your same thing and falling short of expectations in New York when you're regarded as and touted as such this highly ranked manager. I think when he saw that the Cubs were going to offer him that amount of money, I don't think it mattered if Cohen and the Mets got the opportunity to match it. I think his heart was already set on, hey, I'm going to get paid a boatload of money and I don't need to deal with the New York media. Pack your bags, honey. We're going to Chicago.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, should we just talk about Craig Counsell now then? In that case,
would love to.
I mean, we might as well. Before we move on, well, I guess yeah. No, let's just talk about Craig Counsell because we already mentioned it a bunch of times. We're not going to beat around the bush until we get to it as scheduled. But Craig Counsell shocked a lot of people on Monday. The Mets hire Mendoza. After being heavily linked to Counsell for the last few weeks.
The only team, basically, by the way.
Right, the only team that was directly linked to him that we heard about. And then they signed Mendoza, and immediately everyone says, oh my God, he must be going to the Astros then, because that's the other biggest team that needs a manager. And it just felt right to a lot of people, I guess. So,
to a lot of people, except for you, Alex.
Except for me, yeah. I a minute before the announcement came out, I said, we should also say that the frenzy on the Astros was until it came out that Counsell was expected to sign with a team that already had a manager. So That changed a lot because, obviously you had all the Yankees fans thinking Aaron Boone was going to be fired, the delusion.
Lot of Dodgers fans were going crazy saying, like, oh my God, Dave Roberts is gone.
But I don't know. I was thinking about it, and I was like, what team could really use a veteran manager, a really good manager, and that doesn't really have that strong of a manager? Because obviously Dave Roberts isn't getting fired for Craig Counsell. It's not happening. He's been in that organization for too long. I saw someone say the Braves. You think they're firing Brian Snitker?
You're out of your mind.
Are you kidding me? No. I said, Craig Counsell signing with the Cubs would be the most crazy plot twist of all time after thinking he was going to the Mets for the last however many weeks. And sure enough, a minute later, Craig Counsell to the Cubs for 5 years for $40 million, which is $8 million a year. He immediately becomes the highest paid manager in baseball. He immediately has the highest AAV of any manager in baseball. I mean, $8 million a year for a manager is wild. And yeah, he's the new manager of the Cubs. It felt like a betrayal for Brewers fans. I mean, they would have been fine if you went to the Mets, but the Cubs, your rival. To be fair, I ain't turning down that much money. I don't know.
That is, by the way, $8 million is more than the average salary of a relief pitcher in baseball.
Crazy.
That is an insane amount of money to sit on the bench and say, hey, you're not doing well right now. Let's go get some other guy out of the bullpen. Come on now.
And Counsell only made $22 million in 14 years as a player. And now he's making $40 million in 5 years to manage the Cubs.
Yeah. Although
it could be any other team, but no one's turning down that money as a manager.
Oh no,
it's not happening.
Not even as a manager, as a person. You get told, hey, $40 million, like that is. Counsell has already made, like you said, $22 million as a player, as well as being, he could walk into any restaurant in Milwaukee and get a meal comp type of thing. Like, to get that generational wealth for your family, that's a whole nother, opening a can of worms about life and stuff. That's a different topic. But, yes, it's a little bit upsetting that, like, hey, Craig Counsell, we know and we've seen photos, like, since he was born, basically, he grew up a Brewers fan. He was Milwaukee, They named the Brewers dedicated so much money to the city of Milwaukee to build these, what are they called? Build parks in his name and all that, and which got vandalized, which totally not cool. Totally not cool. It's sports. Yeah. Get over it in that sense. But you can never turn down that amount of money. And I think honestly, Craig Counsell has been known to make a lot of something out of a whole bunch of nothing in terms of especially pitching. Cubs are going to need that. Cubs are going to need it.
Yeah, I mean, Craig Counsell was a big part of just the entire Brewers' success throughout the 7 years he was there or however long he was there. He was a big part of their success, and he was a big part of bringing guys in and why the team was successful in the end. And the clubhouse culture, of course, is a big thing too. Like I talked about with Mendoza, like sometimes, you bring a guy in just for the clubhouse culture. But Counsell could do both. He's a very good manager, and he can do the clubhouse. It does seem crazy. If I'm a Brewers fan, I will feel betrayed, regardless of how much money he got. I mean, the Brewers owner had a quote that came out yesterday, and he said, when he first told me, I said, "Are you messing with me?" Because that just doesn't feel real. Your manager for however many seasons calls you and says, "Hey, I'm signing with the Cubs, our rival." I don't think my first reaction would be thinking that was a serious statement. Yeah. I would be shocked too.
Yeah, I think that it blindsided not just the baseball community, but also the Brewers front office. Because I think the Brewers genuinely had the best way of re-signing him. They offered to match basically anything that the Mets were willing to throw at him, which sounds great. But as soon as he got that call from the Cubs, it's reported at least that when the Cubs offered him $8 million a season, he never called anyone else and just accepted and signed.
Which is crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy, but also how many teams, and I think the Cubs are the only team that fit into this category, how many teams are so desperate to have a good manager when they want to compete? It's basically only the Cubs, because I think no matter who you put into the Brewers organization right now, because of what Counsell has done, there's a recipe for success. Same thing with the Mets. There is a recipe for success. The Mets have more volatility in terms of it can go wrong, but if you're looking at the Brewers, for example, or even the Astros too, two places that now need a manager, the ability for success has already been created by the previous manager. Counsell has shown that there is so much structure that goes into making that ball club what it is and what it has been, and that he can do it. And so that means that there is a recipe there. Same thing with Dusty Baker and the Astros. They won a World Series. 29 other teams do not do that every year.
Right.
So.
Right. Well, I mean, going back to what you said with, he saw $8 million a year from the Cubs and didn't call anyone back. I think if I'm Counsell, I am calling the Brewers and saying, the Cubs just offered me 5 years, $40 million, $8 million a year. What do you have to say about that? And, if they say no, then you have every right to sign with the Cubs. If they say we'll match it, then that's just a decision of where your heart wants to go.
Yeah.
And I think, he probably would have stayed in Milwaukee, to be quite honest with you. So I think that is a little weird. And then going back to what you said about, recipe for success, the Brewers are a consistent playoff team. The Mets, like you said, obviously have that recipe for success. They have the superstars. They have some of the young guys.
Well, they have the recipe card, except that they just lost their reading glasses. Because it's there.
Right.
Like, you can see it. You just don't know how to do it just yet.
Right. So, but I think that the Cubs is an amazing fit for Counsell. Like, right. Disregarding the fact of rivalries and everything. He's a veteran manager, and I don't think David Ross was really cutting it for this ball club. The Cubs needed a different guy in position. David Ross was there for 4 years, and I can't remember many times where anyone really said, wow, David Ross is doing a really good job managing the Cubs over there.
But there was also no one who ever said, hey, David Ross is really not doing a good job. That's why it was such a blindside to everybody, because everybody thought that David Ross had one of the most secure positions in managerial baseball.
I didn't think so.
I definitely
he didn't do
thought
anything
so.
crazy.
No, but he didn't do anything beyond stupid or anything that made you say, like, hey, at the end of the season, we should think about letting him go if you're a Cubs fan.
Right, but Craig Counsell does stuff that people notice
exactly.
And say, wow, that's really good. And I think, the biggest reason this was a blindside was because the Cubs didn't interview Craig Counsell till at least November 1st, which was, 5 days before they ultimately signed him to the deal, because they didn't want to ask the Brewers' permission for interviewing him.
Because if that gets out,
well, because that's why it blindsided so many people, because since they didn't have to ask the Brewers for permission, it was never reported that Counsell even interviewed in the first place, which is why no one expected it. I think it's a really smart move by the Cubs. The Brewers had no idea that the Cubs were going to offer him that much money or even offer him a job at all until Counsell called them and said, look, I already accepted. I think that was a crazy good move for the Cubs. And then going back to the Cubbies, obviously barely missed the playoffs this season. 83 and 79, if it wasn't for a bad stretch at the end of the year, and maybe Seiya Suzuki catching a fly ball, they would have been in the playoffs. So, I don't know. I think, the Cubs have a very good route to be successful this year. And I think that there is a very fine way to do it. It's just a matter of can they do it. Because I think it all starts with re-signing Cody Bellinger.
I don't know. There's a lot to be said about what needs to go on for this team in terms of the Cubs to be successful. And yes, a big part of that is bringing in Craig Counsell. I mean, look at what the Rangers just did, right? They won the World Series because, honestly, after DeGrom, what was their biggest free agent signing? Bruce Bochy. Like,
yeah,
just a guy who knows how to...
Bruce Bochy is still bigger right now.
In terms of...
He's done more so far.
Yeah, that's true. He has thrown, like 9... He threw like a 9-inning shutout before.
No, but his impact has been more felt than DeGrom's impact so far. Just in the first game.
Yes. But
I see what you mean, though.
Like, a lot of teams, and it's been coming out because as of, I guess yesterday of this time posting, as of November 7th, the GM meetings have started in Texas. And you're hearing 29 out of the 30 teams basically say, we think we might have a chance of being competitive because of what the Rangers just did. And if you want to look at the Rangers' model for success and why they won a World Series, their manager was a massive part of that. So, the Cubs doing that, especially after just missing the playoffs, where they had a point in time, what was it, in August, where we thought that we're never going to lose again. Cody Bellinger was on one. Dansby Swanson was finally coming around and doing that second half Dansby Swanson
thing. They were
thing.
unstoppable.
Seiya Suzuki had that 4 homers in 3 games stretch and was playing amazing defense, of course. All of that came to a crumbling end.
He dropped that ball, so it nullifies all that.
Yeah, it nullifies all of that. But this team was poised to be successful, and then they crumbled at the very end because their bullpen was so depleted. Their guys were just depleted, and their guys also forgot how to use their hands. And it happens. But I think with Counsell now being there, it'll be a different story.
you can call this a prediction, or you could just call it me what I want the Cubs to do this offseason. I think, you start with re-signing Cody Bellinger. Obviously, they offered him the qualifying offer, which he will probably decline. We'll talk about that a little more later. But I think the top priority, no matter how you do it, should be getting Cody Bellinger back on a, not necessarily long term, but definitely a more than 2 year deal. And then I think, you go from there. You go after the Yamamotos of the world. You And when I say Yamamotos of the world, I mean Yamamoto. You go after Yamamoto. You go after Snell or Nola or even, a closer like Hader. You go after those free agent pitchers that are going to be on the market and are going to be looking for places to be competitive. And you don't pay $40 million, or you don't give your manager $8 million a year if you're not ready to spend money. So I think this is the sign that the Cubs are ready to spend money and they're ready to cash in, to boost their team. So I don't know. I see a very bright future for the Cubs if they make the right moves. I think that they could be extremely competitive next season.
Yeah, I hope that you're right. I'm looking forward to seeing what moves they make throughout the course of this offseason, because there is the potential to build basically a super team from free agency if you make the right deals, if you shake hands with the right people. Bringing in, like you said, Yamamoto and another starter, and then bringing in Josh Hader. We know that this lineup, if they're on and they bring back Cody Bellinger, we know that they can hit. So it's just a matter of preventing the other team from crossing the plate, which the Cubs really struggled with at times throughout the season. Looking forward to seeing what they do, and if Counsell is their first big move, and they're spending $40 million on him, $8 million a season, and we keep having to reiterate that because that's just an absurd amount of money. If they're willing to spend that much on on a manager, how much money are they willing to spend on the players that actually affect the result on the field more than anything else?
Yeah. I mean, and you could even, bring back a guy like Marcus Stroman if you're talking about a free agent pitcher. Stroman declined his player option for next year. I think he's looking for not necessarily more money per year, but I think he's looking for a longer deal just to have a secure job for the next few years. So I think, they might just bring him back. And then, if you add a Yamamoto or Nola, or really anyone, any big free agent pitcher, my guess would be Yamamoto. I do think that the Cubs might be the front runner for him in my head. You have a recipe for success there, and they just got to do it the right way.
I don't know. I feel like the Cubs like their lefties. Cubs like their lefties. I feel like Blake Snell is their guy.
I mean, they got Seiya Suzuki on the team, and I did not expect that. I didn't think he was going to a Central team, so I'm not going to doubt the Cubs again, and I could definitely see Yamamoto going there.
Okay, I'm not gonna disagree with you on that, because the Cubs can shock the world.
We talked about the Mets. We talked about their new baseball ops, president of baseball ops. We talked about their needing a general manager. They are not the only team in the National League East that needs a new general manager, because Kim Ng stepped down as the Marlins general manager just a couple weeks ago after leading the team to its first regular full season playoff berth in 20 years, since 2003. She steps down. The first female GM in sports history stepped down this weekend, and the Marlins are out of a GM.
Not the offseason that you don't want to have someone sitting in your general manager's office, if you are the Miami Marlins, especially because you just had a very successful season, right?
They did.
There's no reason as to why, after such a successful season, you would not want to go build on that. But when you go and say to your general manager, like, hey, we want to bring in someone to oversee you after you just had one of the most successful full seasons in the last 20 years for an organization, I would also feel disrespected by that.
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to read one of Kim Ng's quotes from just a couple of days after she resigned. I don't know. I just liked the quote, and I think it kind of, you can interpret it a few different ways. And we'll talk about it after. I just want to read the quote really quick. So it says, they asked her why you resigned, obviously, and the answer was, we discussed the plan to reshape the baseball operations department. In our discussions, it became apparent that we were not completely aligned on what that should look like, and I felt it best to step away. And then, of course, I wish to express my gratitude and appreciation to the Marlins family, friends, and time in South Florida, blah, all the fun stuff. The part I wanted to highlight was, in our discussion, it became apparent that we were not completely aligned, on that baseball operations department. And we find out, a couple weeks later, on Sunday, they hired Peter Bendix to be their president of baseball ops. So obviously, Ang resigning had something to do with either them bringing in Peter Bendix specifically, or them saying, we want to bring someone in to be the president of baseball ops, rather than promoting you and having you be the president of baseball ops.
I think
so. There's a couple different options that you could go with there to exactly why she resigned, but they're both the same overall picture, which is the similar reason to why Jeter left the ownership group. They just did not see eye to eye. The ownership group wanted to do something that she didn't like, and she must have really not liked it because she left.
I wonder. I wish I could have been a fly on the wall for that conversation and for that meeting, because that's one of those things that I completely believe Kim Ng. Completely side with her.
Oh, me too.
And I agree with her in the sense of, she deserved to be named the president of baseball operations after the success that she's had, and the proof is in the pudding. She went out and traded Pablo Lopez, one of the best starters in baseball this past season, but traded him for one of the best hitters this game has seen in like 50 years, 100 years. Yeah. Like, you don't think to make that trade, and then guess what? You both teams make the playoffs. Like, yes, you probably could have figured out a way to get Luis Ariz without giving up Pablo Lopez, but you were able to call up younger guys and give them opportunity, let them spread their wings more, and guess what? It worked. Kim Ng did the right thing. She proved that she could do it, and then they decide to screw her over by saying, we want to bring in someone to oversee you. We don't. That's basically like saying, we don't have confidence in you to keep doing your job, and that's disrespectful.
I will say, I understand the hire of Peter Bendix.
Oh, totally.
Because he was serving as the Rays GM for a while. He was in the Rays organization for a while, and he was a large part of the reason that the Rays have been consistently good and, been able to scout these random players that you wouldn't think are really good and then turn them into superstars. So he was a really big part of that. I understand the thought process there. But like you said, Kim Ng, the Marlins have a surplus of pitching. So what did she do? She traded one of their better pitchers for one of the best bats in the National League, or in all of baseball at the time. You know what I mean? You get what you need, and you sacrifice a little bit of what you have, but that that's going to be replaced when you're coming up. So I think she did a really good job with that, and I think it's a shame that they didn't promote her to the baseball ops and just have Bendix have been the GM of the Marlins. Obviously, maybe there wasn't as much of an incentive for him to leave the Rays to just come to the Marlins and have the same role. But I think that there were definitely ways you could have went about it. And I'm not, trying to speak negatively about Bendix, but I do think that it is very much a shame that Kim Ng is no longer with them.
Completely agree with you. I know, and based off of what we've seen so far for her skill set, that she will get a job somewhere else. And I hope that it's a GMing role, because she has the ability. Like, imagine throwing her into a system like the Dodgers or like the Giants, where you have not only a surplus of prospects, but you have free range ability to go out there and compete with the best of the best in terms of trying to sign free agents or trying to trade for top line guys. I think that she deserves a second chance in baseball, because she is a great manager, a great general manager, and I hope that there is a job for her somewhere.
There definitely will be. I don't even think it's a second chance. I just think it's her. I think she's making a lot of the decisions herself.
Well,
If I'm a
yes,
baseball team, I think baseball teams are reaching out to her. I don't think she's even gonna need to reach out to them just because of how good she's been with the Marlins. Dare I say, the
very
Rays
sense.
need a general manager now.
That would be terrifying because I
A
feel like
little swap.
Tim Nain can
Eng.
Excuse me, Tim Aang can probably make that team a dynasty overnight.
Yeah. I mean, that would be a funny swap. Her just saying,
She
screw you
would
guys.
she would probably
I'm
trade
going.
Tyler Glass now for Luis Arias. classic,
That would be pretty funny.
classic Tim Aang. Just get a pitcher for Luis Arias.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, if we want to just keep moving on the train of, front offices in baseball and what's going on with them right now, we can move over to the American League East and a foe of the Rays, where, Ang might be going soon. You never know. The Boston Red Sox.
Yeah,
The Boston Red Sox this season just had their third season in last place in the AL East in the last 4 years. So obviously not good. And they got rid of Heim Bloom just before the season ended. At the end of 2023, that is. And on October 25th, so just a couple weeks ago, they hired Craig Breslow as their chief baseball officer, which is basically third in command in the entire organization.
yeah.
You got the owner, and then you got the someone else, and
The
then you got
the vice owner.
him. But I think this is a crazy move for the Red Sox if they follow through with what they're saying they're going to do. Obviously, Craig Breslow was just most recently served as an assistant general manager with the Cubs. And now he's going to be handling all baseball operations for the Red Sox. So that is a pretty big jump. And, if, like I said, if they do what they say they're going to do, it's going to be really fun to be in Boston. Breslow has already stated, he's come out. I believe he said something today, too, after the GM meetings. And he said it's going to be a fun couple of days to sum it up, I guess. That's not the exact quote, but he did say just a couple days after being introduced, that finances will not be a limiting factor to building a championship team. But again,
How
only time will
true
tell.
can that be?
Right, that's why I'm saying only time will tell. Like, what do you think is going to happen in terms of, will the Red Sox just be chasing every free agent out there, because that's what their fans seem to think at this moment in time.
So, I think a big issue with the Red Sox right now is that their ownership group, right, which has notable names like LeBron James, is a partial owner in the Boston Red Sox. Crazy to think about. But I think a big thing is that ownership group also owns a European soccer team. I forget what team it is, but it's a massive organization. And a lot of their resources over the past few years have been dedicated to that soccer team and trying to win I guess it's the Premier League that they're in, or like one of the top divisions in European soccer. Do I think that maybe bringing
Liverpool,
in,
they own Liverpool.
Thank you. So that's a massive team. I think anyone who's anyone knows what Liverpool is. Well, what the team is, whatever. That being said,
You know the name. Name.
for sure. With that being said, how dedicated is the ownership group to allowing the Red Sox to spend however much money it takes to win a World Series? Because then you're talking, I think, everyone right now, if you asked 1 to 100 fans of every MLB team, how do you make your team a World Series contender? It's two guys, Shohei Ohtani, Yamamoto. Get those guys in, and then we start talking about World Series caliber. They can go to the Athletics, and we can be talking to you about how there's a chance they make it into the wild card, because those two guys can be massive impact players. I'm looking forward to seeing how much financial flexibility he is allotted to, because they also fired their GM, right? Heim Bloom. He got fired early, like right when the postseason started, type of thing, I believe, or he was the president of baseball operations.
Yeah. Breslow took over what Bloom was.
Yes. So I think if what he said is true in terms of, he didn't go into any specifics about it, but he did say he has quite a lot to learn about all of the structure of baseball. He has quite a lot to talk about with the ownership group in terms of what they want to do. But he said if financial flexibility is not going to be an issue for the Red Sox, then they are looking to be highly competitive in the free agent market this year. Which,
Yeah,
if you're in Beantown, you're loving to hear that. You deserve it.
because if you're looking at just like Red Sox payroll in general, their payroll in 2024, like as right now without any signings, I guess, is 116.7 million, which yes is a lot, but the Red Sox definitely have more money than that. They are one of the bigger markets in terms
They're like
of
in the top 5.
being able to spend money. So, again, if it's true and they're only at 116 million right now, you have a lot of money to work with. If it is really true that they're just going to let him cook and kind of go out and get who he needs to get,
And
you're talking
that 100,
you're talking big free agents.
Yeah, and that 116 million includes one of the best left-handed hitters in baseball in Rafael Devers.
Yeah,
so,
I mean,
whoa.
we're not. They don't have nothing. I think a big part of their issue was pitching this season, and
Massive.
there are a lot of really good free agent pitchers out there. We talk about Yamamoto, and obviously Shohei Ohtani won't be pitching next season, but if you sign him to a long-term deal, he'll be pitching in 2024. So that's another kind of pitcher. 2025. Sorry, next year's 2024. You got Snell, you got Nola, you got Hader, and those are just the biggest names. There's still a lot of guys who are looking for jobs, and I think there's potential for them to sign not one, not two, but 2 or more big name free agents this offseason.
Yeah.
If the ownership group lets Breslow spend money.
Right. And honestly, even if they tell him, hey, we don't want a $500 million contract or a $200 million contract to a guy who's unproven in MLB, I think maybe they'll give him the leash to say, hey, we can offer you the best 3-year deal. We'll give you more AAV for less years. I think that, seriously, a lot of teams are going to be looking at that and thinking about signing certain free agents to these shorter term, higher AAV deals, because it can work out in the long run in terms of you can win a championship, and then guess what? In 2 years, you don't need to worry about paying a guy $40, $41, $42 million. It's the best of both worlds. So be on the lookout for not just the Red Sox trying to do that, but a lot of teams trying to financially free themselves earlier. Look at Julio Rodriguez contract has a team option like in the middle of it. If they pick it up, then guess what? Julio Rodriguez just made himself basically $400 million in that entire contract time. But if they don't, they just save themselves 180 something million.
Yeah. I mean, you want to talk about teams that need to cut their payroll a little bit. I think this is a good time to start talking about the San Diego Padres, because just a few days ago, it was revealed that the Padres took out a $50 million loan towards the end of the season, during the season, towards the end, in order to pay obligations, including player payroll. So the Padres, we talked about it going into last season. Oh my God, look how many big names that they have. How are they going to pay Juan Soto in the offseason? How are they going to pay Juan Soto 2 off seasons from now? They're not. They don't have the money. They have the 3rd highest payroll in baseball, and they can't pay it. So obviously, naturally, now everyone thinks they got to clear up money, and they got to do it fast.
Fire sale.
So you're looking at either a fire sale or just one big sale. Just one big superstar getting moved, maybe 2. Get like a Cronenworth contract off the books in addition to Soto. Just to clear up some money. And do you think a Juan Soto trade is possible?
Yes, because I think Soto, the season that the Padres just had leaves such a sour taste in a young superstar like Juan Soto. Like, why, even if maybe the success comes back around next season, but you don't win a World Series, what's the point of staying with them when you're talking about the Mets, or hell, if the Red Sox are actually going to spend money, talking about like those two organizations offering you $300+ million and job security for a very long time, whereas the Padres can't afford to pay you for a full season without taking out a loan.
Yeah.
It's not a good look. Not a good look.
Yeah, I don't see any reason they shouldn't trade Soto. I saw some things that said they might wait till the deadline next year. I just
That's
don't
the
see that.
smartest thing to do, but it's also the
But I,
most boring thing to do, because I would love to be sitting here talking to you about, like, hey, guess what? The the Marlins are going to be contenders because, yes, they sold a lot of their farm, but they have Juan Soto. Like, I want to be talking about
but
that, but
I think it's more of, if they trade him at the deadline, they're still paying half his year's salary. So if you're really trying to dump salary, wouldn't you just do it at the beginning of the year?
because
You
they
know what I
would
mean?
they would be able to capitalize on the fact that there's a contending team that is going to need him, that left-handed 400 OBP.
Yeah,
They're going to
but
capitalize
I
on the
also
fact
think
that
there's
someone is prioritizing bringing that in, and then attach one or two contracts that they don't want, like a Jake Cronenworth, to it, and say, you're going to take this deal and we're not deferring you any money because you want Juan Soto that bad, and Juan Soto makes your championship percentage go from 3% to 10%. And in baseball,
it depends.
that's a big gap.
It depends what you're seeing, because obviously there is also something to be said in a contending team getting Juan Soto before the season even starts. You know
Yes.
what I mean? So I don't know. I think that maybe trying to do it before the season starts, if you get the right offer, go for it, because I don't think you're getting the exact value that you gave for him. I think that
No,
no matter what,
that's gone.
no matter what, you can't match the value that they gave the Nationals, because that was so much value they gave them. But I do think that uh, maybe during the season might have more value than at the trade deadline, because say there's only you go from having the contending teams that think they're going to contend at the beginning of the season is a lot more than the teams that think they're going to be contending at the trade deadline.
My counter argument to that is, look at the Mariners. I think is going to be a great example this upcoming season. Not to get too much into, our will bees, which will obviously be much later in the offseason. If they are a game out, and their issue is, we have too many right-handed bats. We cannot go into this. We cannot go into the second half with all these right-handed bats, and as soon as we come up against a right-handed pitcher, we don't have a solution for it. Sure, getting Juan Soto is just one bat, but Soto is a different beast in that box, that he can make a difference, and that's why I'm saying that like a team like the Mariners, who might be just barely scratching the wild card, is going to be like, oh my god, we need him right now, and we're willing to overpay and take salary in order to ensure that we have him for our playoff push. That's what I'm saying.
It's all about fits. It's all about fits, and whether there's a right way to do it is debatable. If they even wind up doing it, it
Highly
just
likely
depends.
that they don't do it.
Depends on offers. It just depends on offers, and obviously they need to dump salary. I have been seeing some crazy things. Let's not I get that they need to dump salary, but let's not be outlandish. They're not trading Fernando Tatis Jr. to the Red Sox, because I have seen Red Sox fans say that,
Oh,
and
they've been going
I just
crazy.
I think I might have laughed out loud by myself.
Yeah,
Like, no one was in the room, but I just could not help but laugh. They're not trading Fernando Tatis Jr.
and
Come
Orioles
on.
fans were clamoring at the thought of bringing back Manny Machado, which I thought was hilarious because, one, you have Gunnar Henderson, and two, like, since when did the Orioles want to take on a $300 million contract, basically?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
no.
I mean,
They're not going to
but
trade their staple guys. It's more of getting rid of. It would not surprise me in a few years down the road, Xander Bogaerts is not a San Diego Padre. Just for the simple
I
fact
mean,
of salary dump. Like, they're going to keep. Manny Machado literally signed. He had the opportunity to get the contract that he got from the Padres matched by the Dodgers. And he said no because he saw something in San Diego. He's not going anywhere. Like, that is
I'm interested.
a staple. Then
I'm
Fernando
interested.
Tatis Jr.,
Well,
obviously.
the Padres are getting some money off the books, just in terms of they do have a decent amount of free agents going into the offseason. Obviously Josh Hader, Blake Snell, the future Cy Young, Blake Snell,
And
being
Trevor
the biggest
Hoffman,
one.
award winner for this year,
Ha-
probably.
Hader. But you also have Seth Lugo, who declined a $7 million player option.
Good move. Good move on his part.
Michael Wacha declined a $16 million mutual option, but he declined. He had a really good season. I think he's going to get, a longer-term deal. And then, obviously, the Padres, they did dump some salary for next season. They declined Nick Martinez's $16 million team option. And, Nick Martinez, he did have a 1.19 ERA plus in 63 games. It was a good season, but
not $16 million.
$16 million for a reliever type season. So the Padres do have some changes coming in terms of their roster. Not to mention Bob Melvin, their manager, also gone. He's with the Giants now. Bob Melvin is the manager of the San Francisco Giants. So we'll see who they replace him with. So I think maybe big changes coming to the Padres, who were expected to be a playoff team last year and did not turn out that way. So I'm interested to see how they take this Juan Soto situation, even if they look at Xander Bogaerts, Jake Cronenworth, who they decide to get rid of, how they decide to do it, and when that decision comes. I'm excited to see.
I think no matter if it's going to be Soto, Bogaerts, or hell, they might trade away like role player guys, like not guys who are going to or are making this massive amount of money. They're going to attach Jake Cronenworth to it. I think that's what you kind of have to do, especially since that you have some flexibility in terms of some of your minor league guys play the infield. Ha-Seong Kim literally feels like he can field almost every position in the infield and win a Gold Glove. Like, you have the flexibility that Jake Cronenworth is going to be that guy that gets moved because of his contract. And that's what you kind of have to do.
Yeah. And I think, maybe teams knowing that they took out this loan and need to dump payroll might kind of come back to bite them, because obviously teams know that you're desperate to get rid of salary. So they're going to lower their offers a little bit. Speaking of offers, we want to talk about the qualifying offer now.
Sure.
So in case you don't know what the qualifying offer is, the qualifying offer is a 1-year deal offered to a pending unrestricted free agent. They have to be an unrestricted free agent. That is the amount of the average salary of baseball's top 125 earners. So basically, it's a team offering a 1-year deal. For this year, it's $20.325 million for a 1-year deal to a player that's pending free agency. If the player accepts it, then they're obviously in that 1-year, $20 million deal. If they decline it, then they get into free agency, and if they don't re-sign with your team, the team that offered them the qualifying offer, that team gets draft pick compensation in the next draft. I don't know exactly when the compensation comes, like what round it is. I don't exactly know, but they do get draft pick compensation. And then as an additional note, a player can only be offered the qualifying offer once in their career. So this year, 7 players got offered the qualifying offer. You have Shohei Ohtani from the Angels being probably the biggest one, which is laughable, but we'll go back and talk about that in a minute. Blake Snell from the Padres, Josh Hader also from the Padres, Aaron Nola from the Phillies, Sonny Gray from the Twins, Cody Bellinger, comeback player of the year from the Cubs that we talked about earlier, and Matt Chapman from the Blue Jays also got the qualifying offer. My question to you, Lewis, is will any of these 7 players accept the qualifying offer?
I can only see one of them accepting the qualifying offer.
I agree. I think we're gonna say the same person.
Do you want to do like a 3-2-1 thing?
Yeah, sure.
All right.
It's gonna be a little delayed, but yeah, sure.
All right, count it down.
3, 2, 1.
Matt Chapman. Yeah.
Yep.
That's the only guy who I can see accepting, because yes, he did win a Player of the Month last season, but outside of that 1 month that he did win Player of the Month, very lackluster in terms of offense, considering what we know Matt Chapman can be. And not saying that he can be a 300 hitter hitting 50 homers, but he can be more consistent.
Yeah, I mean, what we saw in April in the first month of last year was insane. It was the first month. It was the beginning of the year. He was just going absolutely insane.
It felt like it was impossible to get him out.
Honestly, I think $20 million a year
it's a lot of money.
Is a lot I'm not saying, Matt Chapman, I'm not saying he would be under that per year if he were to sign a deal, but it's not a bad amount of money for a guy like Matt Chapman. The only reason I think he might not accept it is because he wants a longer term deal, and I think there are teams out there that will give him, a 4 or 5 year deal.
Dude, the Mets might give him a deal.
Right. So I'm leaning towards he probably won't accept it, but I could definitely see if he did accept it, I can see why he would. You know what I mean? Everyone else, come on. Cody Bellinger just won Comeback Player of the Year. He's not doing another 1 year deal. And I am a little concerned that the Cubs offered him the qualifying offer means that they're not going to be chasing him in free agency.
I think they're just worried about getting outbid on him because if, like we spoke about earlier with Cubs and Counsell and all that, if they're going to be competitive, they need to cut somebody's salary somewhere. But can they convince? Can they convince Cody Bellinger and Scott Boras to, hey, take a few extra million off your paycheck, and guess what? We're gonna go bring in Yamamoto or Blake Snell, whatever.
No way.
Right. Of course, Boras is not going to say yes to that. Maybe Cody Bellinger tries to convince him of that, but who knows? It's a safety blanket. That's what the qualifying offer is. It's a safety blanket to at least get something, which good move.
Well, if you think about it, he's never been offered the qualifying offer in his career, and the Cubs know that if he declines it and they re-sign him, it's going to be for multi-year, and at the end of that contract, they wouldn't offer it to him anyway. So I guess it does make sense. It's one of those, like you just said, safety blankets. You might as well kind of things.
I do want to mention a few names that did not get a qualifying offer that kind of shocked me. Do you mind if I read these off?
Well, before can I just Sonny Gray, not going to accept. He's top 3 in AL Cy Young voting this year. He is going to get a pretty massive contract because of what the market is this year.
Yeah, for sure.
Aaron Nola is also looking for a long-term deal. He's not going to accept that. Josh Hader literally would not pitch more than 3 outs last year, so he's gone. He's getting up on out of there. He's one of the best relievers in baseball. He's going to get a really long-term deal. He's not going to accept that. Blake Snell, he's going to win the Cy Young this year. He's
no reason to take a 1-year deal.
He is signing a long-term deal, and then literally all I wrote is Shohei Ohtani, no shot.
I put Shohei Ohtani LOL.
Yeah, we all know why. We all know why.
Yeah,
the Angels are not expecting to get him back more than likely.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, tell me some of the guys who did not get offered the qualifying offer.
First and foremost, Teoscar Hernandez from the Seattle Mariners shocked me. However, based on
I see it.
It makes sense. But if you're
Not
the
worth
Mariners, if you're the Mariners, you would want the compensation for at least having him walk. But also, would accept $20 million. Yeah, he would.
Yeah.
Another guy, Kevin Kiermaier from the Blue Jays.
Not worth $20 million a year.
Right, not worth $20 million, but shocking that the Blue Jays don't want the safety blanket. The Twins, Kenta Maeda, not surprising, nowhere near close to worth $20 million a year. And then the most surprising one, in my opinion, Rhys Hoskins of the Philadelphia Phillies. Not getting the qualifying offer. Yes, he was out this season with a torn ACL, which, I hope that he is 100% better and ready to start playing baseball somewhere. Why would they not offer that to him is kind of strange. Because
he would have taken it.
Right. There are 20 other teams out there that are willing to give him multi-year deals for less AAV. But we know that Rhys Hoskins is like a Philly guy. You saw it in that 2022 playoff run. Like, he is a massive part of what Philadelphia is. He would have taken that to then prove himself that he deserves the long-term deal in Philadelphia. So I'm kind of wondering, what do the Phillies plan on doing about first base come next season? It's a little weird to me.
I think we might see them sign Hoskins to a long-term deal. Not long-term, but definitely a multi-year deal. I don't see that out of the picture just because they didn't offer him the qualifying offer.
Yeah, but
it could just be this guy's coming off a torn ACL. Let's not give him $20 million for 1 year of baseball. What if he is just not worth that? We'd rather, let him go to free agency and then say, we'll give you 10 mil, or we'll give you 30 mil, but for 3 years, or like just some kind of incentive based, with team options or something, some team friendly deal. I think it makes sense that they didn't offer him coming off an injury. I see what you mean in the sense of, he is this big Philly guy. He was big part of the 2022 team,
And he's really
and
good when he's on.
culture, and he was he was very good. But I do just think it has something to do with maybe we can get him for a little longer term, or just not worth taking the risk for $20 million.
I hope that's the case because I think Rhys Hoskins fitting back into that lineup come next season in Philadelphia is a massive thing, especially when you think about if that happens, Bryce Harper goes back into right field, and then you're talking about finally having Kyle Schwarber be that full-time DH without needing to worry about having him in left field every couple of games because Marsh needs to sit, or Johan Rojas needs to sit, or Nick Castellanos needs a day off. Having that flexibility, I think, is very, very important.
Yeah, no, I get it. I see what you're saying, and we'll see what happens. It's not like just because they didn't offer him the qualifying offer means he's gone for good. So, but a guy that is most definitely staying on his team is that funky Muncy, Max Muncy. That funky Muncy is staying in Los Angeles. The Dodgers extended Max Muncy in one of the first moves of the offseason. 2 years, $24 million. Makes sense to me. Muncy has been a big part of this team, and he also hit 36 home runs last year. So,
and it felt like 35 of them were in San Francisco's home ballpark. So why not bring him back?
I don't know. Can't hurt. Can't hurt. And that funky Muncy is staying in LA.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
I don't know if you
can
tell, but I love the nickname, that funky Muncy.
Okay, I can definitely tell that. However,
funky guy, he hits 212. He's like a Schwarber-esque kind of guy. He's hitting 212, but he'll put up 40 home runs a season. He will give you 100 RBIs.
He's an interesting guy because I feel like he's
a funky Muncy.
Yes, that, and he can be plugged into a lot of lineups around baseball and have relative success, but his best role is, funny enough, with the Dodgers, and it's not because he's a superstar. Not like we're talking about a Freddie Freeman or Mookie Betts in that lineup. I just think the best opportunity for Max Muncy is on the Dodgers. Shocked that he re-signed so quickly and didn't think about hitting the free agent market because he re-signed before free agent.
He just likes being on the Dodgers.
Yeah, but he re-signed before free agency opened up, which I thought was like, whoa, okay, you really want to just stay in LA, which hats off to you.
Fun.
His family's there. Yeah, he's been there a while. Like, there's no reason to uproot your entire life to make a few extra $1 million that you're probably going to make in the LA market. Let's be real.
That funky Muncy.
Yeah. You want to talk about any other player movements?
Yeah, another movement. Just briefly, the Brewers traded Mark Canha to the Tigers. I thought Mark Canha was a free agent. Apparently, he had a team option. I did not know that.
So that threw everyone off.
I'm going to be honest. I literally had no idea that he had a team option. They traded him to the Brewers for a minor league relief pitcher who was a two-way player up until last year, Blake Holub. Canha was really good after getting traded to the Brewers. He hit 287 after he was traded there with a 120 OPS plus. And now the Tigers will pick up his $11.5 million club option for 2024. And Canha's a Tiger, and Blake Holub, we will probably see him become a lights-out reliever for the Brewers down the line.
Because that's just what the Brewers do. Yes, I agree with you. In terms of the whole Canha thing, genuinely, when it happened, I think even you and I talked about it. We were like, did the Tigers just trade a minor leaguer for a guy who's going to hit the free agent market in a few days? Good to see that they picked up his option, and that's kind of fun in terms of Mark Canha is a very, very underrated outfielder in baseball. Like, he can really thrive in the role of teaching younger guys just how to play the game and how to be successful in the best way possible. And I think that is more of why they traded for him, because they see, like, yeah, we can get a guy who can bat 270, put up a few homers, and play some plus defense in left field. But not only that, just teaching the younger guys, especially when you have Javi Baez in a clubhouse, who don't think is the best influence in a clubhouse, I think Mark Canha being that like the yin to Javi Baez yang, just teaching the young kids like how to just play baseball and survive in the major leagues is a really important thing. And the Tigers eventually want to be competitive again, so why not do something that seems a little stupid, but it could be worth it if Mark Canha just is himself, you know?
Yeah, we'll see what happens with the Tigers this offseason. You mentioned Javi Baez, too. Big shocker here coming out of Detroit. Javi Baez opted into the next 4 years of
100
his
million
deal with the
basically.
Tigers. 4 years, $96 million for a guy who had the second lowest qualified OPS in baseball. Yeah, I could see why you would opt into a 4-year, $96 million
You can't opt out of
rest
that.
of your contract.
Yeah.
No, I mean, he'd be an idiot, too.
I also
So,
I don't want
Javi
to
Baez, to the shock of everyone, is staying with the Tigers.
I don't want to guarantee anything, but I almost am sure that he has a modified no trade clause too, so he can shoot down getting
Probably.
traded to
That
like a
contract
bottom
is
feeder
crazy.
team. Oh yeah, it's bizarre. I mean, good for him. Congratulations for him. I if the big question mark now for the Tigers is Eduardo Rodriguez. What do you do with him because he opted
yeah.
out of his deal? I wonder what the Tigers plan on doing with him because you can bring him back. You know, I think that there is a dollar amount that the Tigers can afford. But will a contender overpay for his services as basically if he goes to a contender, he's going to be a 3 or 4 guy. You know, can you
Yeah,
overpay and guarantee him that he'll be an ace?
Well, depending on what team, Eduardo Rodriguez could be a 1 or a 2. Depends on how he plays, But what I think is the weirdest part of this is if he doesn't wind up going back to the Tigers, he declined a trade to go to the Dodgers this season.
Well, his reasoning made
you
way too
plan-
much sense. His reasoning made way
Yeah,
too
but
much
if
sense.
you planned on signing with another team 4 months later,
Nope.
I don't know. I just find it weird. I do think Eduardo Rodriguez is going to be one of the biggest free agents. I should have been mentioning him when I said Snell, when I said Nola, when I said Hader, when I say Yamamoto. Eduardo Rodriguez is right there. Eduardo Rodriguez has had an amazing season. And honestly, if you look at his entire career, he's had a really impressive career.
Yeah.
So I think Eduardo Rodriguez is one of them hot top free agents, and I am excited to see where he goes as well. If it isn't just getting a better contract with the Tigers, which I don't think it is. I just don't.
No, he's going to go somewhere else. But just to circle back a
I'd
little
be
bit,
shocked.
I understand why he vetoed his trade to go to the Dodgers. It made sense to me, and I'm not going to take that away from him.
I get it. Just let me finish this season out. I'm a free agent. I'm gonna opt out anyway. I'm gonna be a free agent. Just let me. I'll just stay here. There's no point. I get it.
Yeah. So I'm not going to hate on him for that, but it will be interesting to see where he goes because I think genuinely the appeal of being an ace means a lot to a lot of ball players. And Eduardo Rodriguez, I think, if he goes to a contender, there's no contender where he instantly becomes their number 1 ace. Like, win or go home, you want him on the mound. In Detroit, you don't have too much pressure. You can pitch really well. The AL Central is not a good division, so your numbers can look very, very good. And guess what? You can be an ace. And that probably means a lot to a lot of pitchers.
Yeah, it's the matter of, do I want to win or do I want to just guarantee my role on a team kind of thing and get money at the same time. So we'll see what happens with Eduardo Rodriguez.
It will be interesting to see. It will be interesting to see. One thing that won't be too interesting to see is what the Diamondbacks do about their manager because guess what? They re-signed Tory Luvollo to what was it?
Why isn't that interesting?
3-year deal? Well, no, I meant like there's going to be no movement,
Yeah, through 2026, Tory Luvollo.
Yeah, congratulations to him.
Makes sense. He was snubbed for Manager of the Year. He wasn't even in the top 3 for NL Manager of the Year, which is ridiculous.
Well, if they counted the postseason, he would definitely be. No questions about it.
Diamondbacks weren't even expected to be in the top half of the league this year, and they not even made the World Series. They made the playoffs. So I don't know. I think snubbed. I love this move for the Diamondbacks. I don't have much else to say. If you know who Tory Luvollo is, if you know what the Diamondbacks did this year, why not bring back the manager who was all the players love?
And not only that,
So
dude, he might be one of the most passionate managers I've ever seen.
love him.
Like my favorite quote from the entire postseason is right before Game 6 of the NLCS. He said, "We didn't fly all the way across the country to get our asses kicked, and guess what? They kicked ass for 2 games and made it to the World Series." Like
Yeah.
that's a dude
He's a
I
fun
want.
guy.
I don't want him leading my manager. I want him leading me into war. Like
The fun guy, Tory Luvollo.
fun guy, Tory Luvollo. Shout out to him. Congratulations on, cementing your role with the Diamondbacks. That's just round of applause. Round of applause. Well done.
Yeah, yeah. A little movement. We're gonna just continue on the path of movement inside of front offices, inside of coaching staffs, and all that. The Reds actually promoted their general manager Nick Kroll to be their president of baseball operations. He's been their GM and head of baseball ops since 2018, and now he's their president of baseball ops.
Okay.
He's got a great relationship with the organization. He was very key in trading, Luis Castillo, Jesse Winker, Eugenio Suarez, Sonny Gray, all those guys, and in that return for all those guys, they got key parts of their team now, and Spencer Steer, Christian Encarnacion Strand, Novelli Marte, Brandon Williamson, and just like every other Reds prospect you could really think of. Their assistant general manager Brad Meter got promoted to general manager, so kind of movement in the Reds system, but not necessarily bringing in new guys, just changing the roles of some guys.
I like it for the simple fact of giving Nick Krall more flexibility and more say in what goes on is a big thing, because I think that the Reds have completely done a rebuild the correct way, just as with the Baltimore Orioles. They're kind of they're living in the Orioles' shadow right now because the Orioles have had more success as of recently, but the Reds are right there behind them, and giving a guy who has made these amazing moves out throughout the past few seasons more say and more control in what goes on in your ball club is a great move. And now then promoting his assistant to the now GM is another great move. I think they work so well together. They know exactly how they want to run this ball club, and the ownership of the Cincinnati Reds has definitely been very flexible and understanding of what they want to do. Perfect move. Perfect move.
Yeah.
One of the best decisions I think the Reds could have made this offseason, because it's not like they're going to go out and get any of the real big name free agents. Best thing that you could have done as of right now.
Yeah, I mean, one thing the Reds might do this offseason is trade their former Rookie of the Year, Jonathan India.
Mm-hmm.
The Reds have received multiple inquiries about Jonathan India at the first day of the GM meetings.
Yeah, second offseason in a row for Jonathan India being in trade rumors.
Even during the season, he was in trade rumors. They said they're listening to offers, but they're not really motivated on getting rid of him. They don't want to get rid of him. They know they have a surplus of infielders, of good infielders at that, too. But they're still not really motivated to get rid of him. They like the guy. They want to stick with the guy. Obviously, I think if they get wowed by an offer, they're going to have to do it. But I don't think they're actively searching and giving counteroffers for trades. You know what I mean?
Yeah. If you were the... Ooh, good voice track, Lewis. Thank you. If you were the Reds GM, what is like the lowest offer that would really blow you away for Jonathan India? Because in my head, I think if the Mets want to give me Jeff McNeil and a prospect, I'm saying yes. Like that's like my lowest offer. That's the least that I would expect.
I don't really know. I haven't thought about it. I have not thought about a Jonathan India trade all that much.
I understand that. But I don't know.
I haven't thought of it.
Seeing Jonathan India get moved would definitely be a shock. I could see a contending team or a team that wants to contend trying to get him, because not only is he a very good baseball player, he's cheap. Yes, you can be for now, yes, but
he's a Boris client,
right? Boris client who has, I think, 2 more years after this season, so. He has 3 years of arbitration, or it's 2 years of arbitration left. Whatever. Basically, this season and next season, he's going to be cheap compared to what he can be. And if you're a team that
This
needs
is his first year of ARP.
yeah, so he has 3 years basically. He has this season and then 2 more. Which, if you're a team that's looking to contend, you know you can get a very, very lucrative deal for a player of Jonathan India's caliber. Go out and try to make the trade. Do what the Mariners did. Sacrifice a lot of your depth in the minor leagues, but hey, it's worth it if you get a guy that can really help your team.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I also, I'd argue the bigger move for the Reds this week involved a guy who's been on the team for the last 17 years, Joey Votto. They declined his team option for
Heartbreaking.
2024. It was a $20 million team option, which I completely understand. I don't think at this point in his career, Votto is worth $20 million, and he's going to become a free agent. It's sad. They said they can't guarantee him the playing time that he deserves, which is basically a nice way of saying we didn't really want to pay you $20 million, and we think we have guys that we'd rather play over you.
Spencer Steer, man. Spencer Steer.
No retirement announced yet.
No, I think he's going to listen to other teams.
So,
The Blue Jays make the most sense because he is from Canada, and
yeah.
he has mentioned a few times throughout his career how passionate he is about being Canadian and being from the country of Canada. It would not surprise me.
But again, the Blue Jays would have to want to sign him.
Right, and what do you do about Vlad, who we've seen the extreme upside and we've seen the extreme downside? What do you want to do about him if you're the Toronto Blue Jays? Do you think that bringing in a veteran like Joey Votto would really help him control himself? Who knows? I don't know. I think that the best move is to just bring him back to the Reds.
Yeah, bring him back on like a veteran minimum or something like that.
Just let him be the clubhouse guy. I mean, I am not a Reds fan. I love Joey Votto and I do love the Reds. I'm not clamoring to buy their ticket packages and wanting to go to every game. Watching his story, and I'm getting a little choked up about it now, watching his story on Instagram and then seeing all of the posts that he made, not only thanking his teammates, his coaches, the players that helped him throughout all of the minor leagues and the major leagues, but the posts thanking the law enforcement in Cincinnati, the posts thanking the chefs in the kitchen at the MLB, like in the clubhouses, thanking the equipment manager, like every single one of them. It just shows how much Cincinnati means to Joey Votto. And it was like genuinely making me upset. I was like, wow, this is like heartbreaking as a baseball fan. I'm not a Reds fan. And it was just heartbreaking to look at and read about.
Yeah, I am interested to see what kind of happens. Like you said, I think he's a Red for life in my eyes. Also going back to that Blue Jays thing, yes, it makes sense with Canada, but if you're the Blue Jays, I mean, Joey Votto, yes, small sample size, 65 games last season, but even in 2022, he hit 205, or 205 in 2022, 202 last year. It doesn't make sense to bring in a guy like Votto when you can bring in Brandon Belt again, who had a really, really solid year for you. Because Votto would have to be the DH because they're not taking Vlad off first. There's no point if you can just bring back Brandon Belt. They might already have Brandon Belt. I don't think Brandon Belt's even a free agent, so I think Brandon Belt's on their team next season. So I don't know. If he's going to... No, he's a free agent, but I think that bringing him back would probably be a better option than pivoting to Votto. I don't know.
I don't know. I think Joey Votto, Hall of Famer in my eyes, definitely deserves it. One of the best underrated players in baseball since the turn of the century. Honestly, he's been very, very good. Sure. I enjoyed watching him in his time with the Reds, and I hope that this is not the last time, because even if they don't want to bring him back on a veteran minimum, can you please sign him to a 10-day contract for the first game of the season and just give him the proper send-off from the crowd of Cincinnati? Because if I knew that was going to be Joey Votto's last game as a Red, I feel like I would want to be there. Like, again, I'm not a Reds fan, but I feel like I want to be there because Joey Votto deserves the respect of not just Cincinnati, not just Reds fans, not just his like MLB player and all the MLB players, excuse me. He deserves the respect of everybody because he has been an amazing ball player for his 17-year career so far.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fun. Again, he did not have that farewell season, so he didn't really plan on retiring. I don't think after this season. So,
No, he did not.
um, one guy who did officially retire is Boomstick. Nelson Cruz officially retires at 43 years old. We thought we'd never see the day. We thought he'd go till he was 55.
I thought that we
He's
would see him
40,
going up there in a wheelchair with an IV.
43 years old by trade, 19 seasons, most recently this year, obviously with the Padres. Tallied over 2,000 hits in his career, 1,300 RBIs, and how could anyone forget close to 500 home runs, 464 homers. Hell of a career for Nelson Cruz. I think we should clap it.
Yes, we definitely should. We definitely should. Missed out on,
That's all.
what was it, 2 World Series, though? Heartbreaking. I wish Boomstick
Yeah,
would have gotten one.
yeah, but amazing career nonetheless. And I didn't think I'd be able. Oh well, actually, no. Before we go, one last thing. We talked about all the managers and some hirings that have been made already. There are still 4 teams that are looking to sign a new manager. The Astros are looking to replace Dusty Baker. The Padres are looking to replace Bob Melvin.
3-time
The
manager of the year,
Brewers,
Bob Melvin.
yes, now with the Giants. The Brewers are obviously looking to replace Craig Counsell, who went to the Cubs. And now the Angels are looking to replace Phil Nevin. And they actually interviewed Ron Washington tonight. A coach with he was the Rangers manager for a while. Now he's a coach with the Braves. So we'll see if that goes anywhere. And that's all I got. I don't know if you have anything else to add, but
No,
that's it for me.
that's about it. I am looking forward to the next time we speak, hopefully saying that these 4 teams have managers or these 4 teams are down to their final contestants. Most interesting one is the Angels, seeing what they want to do because obviously Shohei's going to leave. Everyone is now clamoring at the thought of, are they going to blow it up and can we get Mike Trout? Like that's a serious question that we'll have to have later in this offseason of will Trout actually get moved? I just want to know what direction they plan on going because if they bring in an older guy like Buck Showalter, what's the deal there? Like, I think the Angels right now should give the opportunity to a rookie manager. Like, they should have been Carlos Mendoza, managed by Carlos Mendoza.
Yeah, I mean that's the kind of Phil Nevin ish kind of thing.
Yeah,
Guy who's never really a manager, and you're just kind of giving him a shot to see what he could do, because you might as well. Um,
I don't know. That's all that I got. I feel great to be back.
we yeah we obviously this is just the first episode of the off season, a little longer too, just because we missed a lot from the playoffs and the last week, the first week of the off season since the World Series ended. But we'll be back. We obviously still have to make some free agent predictions. There's a lot of big free agents coming out on the board. We'll see what happens with them. What else do we have coming up?
Baseball.
Coming up. Oh, awards. We'll do a little awards episode. Those get announced fairly soon, so that'll probably be out by either the end of the week or Monday or something. And yeah, and of course, if any breaking news happens, we'll be here for that too. So that's all I got. Well, we thank you guys for watching, listening, and viewing. No matter where you're watching, if you're watching on YouTube or Spotify, we appreciate it. And if you enjoyed, make sure to share, like, subscribe, follow the podcast, and we will see you guys in the next one. Oh, peace. Baseball.